Hey everyone, Pete Moore from TechMyStressAway.com, and in this video I'm going to talk about how to safely test updating your WordPress website using staging. This video is going to be quite in-depth, so I'd highly recommend watching it once all the way through to get a better understanding of the overall idea. And then if you decide to follow the process yourself, go through it again and pause it when necessary. So before we actually get into the tutorial, just want to cover a couple of things. The first is what actually is staging. Now, staging is a process that developers use to create a copy of a website. Now, they may do that when they're actually developing a brand new site, so they can test different ideas and show the client and that sort of thing. Also, they may use it to test updates, which is the reason why I'm doing this video, so we can test updates for our WordPress site without actually doing it on the live site. And another thing may be to perform some kind of fix if there's an issue. Now, they can do that on the staging site first to make sure the fix works, and then they can push it to the live site without affecting the actual live site. So something else I wanted to mention as well is that if you do have a developer or a company that manages your website, I'd highly recommend speaking to them first before you attempt any of this. This video really is for people who don't have any kind of technical support, they're doing everything themselves, and this just gives them a good way to test updates and maybe new plugins or anything like that. It's quite a useful process to have. Also, it's worth checking to see if the company that hosts the website has a staging tool. So for example, we use SiteGround, and if you have their top package, you get their staging tool as part of it. Or if you use someone like WP Engine, I think they have their own staging tool. So it's probably just worth just checking to see if there's any kind of tool available that you currently have. There's going to be a link below the video in the pinned comments. If you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, there'll be a link underneath where you can subscribe for video notifications, so when I do any more videos you'll be notified by email. And also I'm going to be doing a free mini course on maintaining a WordPress website, so you will get a link to that once it's completed, or it may already be done if you're watching this further down the line. So I'm on a test WordPress website that we have at watchovermysite.com, and this is where I'm going to be performing the staging. So as we can see, we've got a number of updates available, including updating to WordPress 5.0.1. Now, if you spend any time in the WordPress community, you'll know that this particular update has caused quite a bit of controversy. It introduces a new post editor called Gutenberg. It's caused a number of issues with quite a few sites. This is a good reason why we would use staging, so I wanted to try and get this video out sooner, but I've been busy updating all our sites, and it was also giving me a good reason to test this staging plugin that I'm going to be showing you now. I've updated recently up to 50 sites to the new version, and I've probably tested maybe 10 to 15 using this particular plugin, so I've given it quite a good run. So to install the plugin, we just use the usual process, so we can hover over plugins and then click on add new. Then we want to type in staging, and it's going to bring back a few different plugins. The one we're actually going to be using is this first one here, so it's WP Staging, DB and File Duplicator and Migration. If we click on Install Now and then click Activate. Now this site's got quite a few of the common plugins and also themes, so it's quite a good site to test it on. The first screen we're going to see here is the developer is promoting the Pro version. Now, if you are going to be using this in a commercial sense, I would recommend using the Pro version. It does help to support the developer. Now, something I do want to point out here is, if you do know anything about staging, this will only copy your live site to a staged version. You can't bring it back. I've seen a number of comments where people have been complaining, saying it's a scam, and I think that's a big part of a problem in the WordPress community, where so many people expect everything for free. It really is outrageous, but I won't get into that now. So if you want to go past that and just use the free version, click on skip start cloning, and that's going to take you to the main WP staging page. Now if we look through this message here, it's saying that he's done a lot of testing, and another thing I want to mention is that the developer is really responsive. I actually emailed him before doing this video just to kind of look out for any common issues and stuff like that, and he was really responsive. And I've noticed as well on the support forum for the free version, he's very responsive as well. So that's always a good sign when you use any type of plugin. It's good to check that the developers are responsive, especially if it's a big part of your site. So it's just worth mentioning that. And also, as it says here, that you need to do a WordPress backup, and the one he recommends is also the plugin that I use for backups, which is BackWPup. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow his advice, and we're going to install the BackWPup plugin first and do a backup. Now I'm only going to show you basic settings for this plugin, because I'm going to do a video as part of the mini course that I'm going to do, which goes in depth a bit more. So we need to install that plugin first. So if we hover over again plugins and then click add new, this time we're just going to put in backup. Now there's a few plugins for WordPress. I've actually tested this Updraft Plus, which is it's a decent plugin, but the one thing with this is that it doesn't copy all the core files. It only does the WP content folder. So I would suggest using this one here with BackWPup WordPress backup plugin. So if we click install now and activate. Now if you do already have a backup process, then you can obviously ignore this part of the process here. This is just for people that are not currently backing up their WordPress site. And again, there's another welcome message that you can read through. I'm not going to go through it now. This here is just saying, I will just mention this here, that this sends information back to the developer. There's no personal information, so you can choose to do that if you want. If not, then you can just close that, and then it'll go through some help stuff. And again, also there's a pro version of this, so again, that's up to you if you want to check that out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new job. So if we go under BackWPup, add new job, and like I said, I'm just going to quickly go through this. I'm going to do a more in-depth video later. Now we can name this job WOMS Backup. WOMS is for watch over my site. You can name this whatever you want. I would suggest ticking the check database tables, and then if we scroll down, it asks us where we want to save the backup. Now for this video I'm going to back it up to a folder, but I do want to stress here that that's not recommended usually. We don't really want to be storing backups on our hosting account. So in the video I'm going to show you how to back up to Dropbox, but for now I'm just going to do this to the folder. And this is the email that it sends out. It says here, send email with log only when errors occur. Now I would untick that because I always want to get an email. So click save changes. And then we're going to skip schedule, because this is, we don't need this right now. Going forward, this is where you would set a weekly backup or daily, depending on which way you want to do it. If we click on DB backup, this is all the tables in your WordPress database. So we want to leave all these ticked. This is what the file is going to be called. It's usually the name of your database. So we don't want to change anything on there. Files. This will let you exclude particular folders. So this is for the SSL, we don't need that, and the CGI bin. Basically we just want the WP folders. This is where you can exclude specific WordPress related folders. Now I'm just going to leave that as is. You can also choose if there's some plugins that you don't want to back up. So by default, the backup plugin itself is ticked, so you can just leave that. You can choose if you only want your live theme to be backed up. Again, I would just leave that as is. And this is some folders, and this is the uploads folder. So these are some folders inside there. Basically, I would probably just leave this as is. We definitely want to make sure that include special files is ticked, because this is going to back up some really important WordPress files and other server files. So we want to back them up. And again, we want to save changes. I'm going to click plugins. Now this is going to create a text file with a list of all the plugins, so I would suggest leaving that on. The DB check, I don't think there's anything there. You can try to repair defective tables. Just leave that as is as well. And the last one is to a folder, because we decided to back it up to a folder. So this is the location that the backup's going to go to. So it's going to go in the uploads directory, and this file name here, this folder name here, sorry, it's going to be different probably for everyone else. And this here is how many backups you want to keep. Now, like I said, we're not going to be using this going forward, and this is just literally for the video. So I'm going to click Save Changes again. And now we're going to actually run the job. So if we click on Jobs underneath BackWPup, and this is the job that we've created. So now all we need to do is hover over there and click Run Now. And this is going to go through everything here, and it's going to tell you if there's any warnings or errors. So it's going to take a little while depending on how big your site is. So I'm just going to pause the video. Okay, so the backup's now completed. For those of you that want to check the log, there's a link here. It probably won't mean a lot to most people, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to go onto our hosting account, and I'm going to show you where this backup file has gone to. So this is in my C panel or control panel in the HostGator account where I'm doing this. So if you type in File, you'll see File Manager. So I'm going to open that up, and then I'm going to go to watchovermysite.com, and this is all the folders for that domain. These are the main WordPress folders, and then these are all the WordPress files. So where we want to go to is WP-content, uploads, and then it's this backup folder here. So this is the zip file or compressed file that it's created. This contains all the information for WordPress, so all the files, the folders that we selected, and also the database, which is probably the most important part. I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to download this to my desktop. Okay, so that file is downloaded. Now the only thing I suggest that you might want to do with this is, if I go to my desktop, this is the file here. Now as I said, it is a zip file, so it does need to be decompressed or extracted. Now depending on what version of Windows you're using, I'm using version 7, so I've got one installed called WinRAR. So you would right click the file and then click extract files, or some versions of Windows do have one built in, so it might be something like decompress or extract or something like that, just to make sure that this file isn't corrupted and you have got a proper copy of all the files. So that was just really a little side note. So now we've got our backup, what we're going to do is create an actual staging version of our website. So if we go to hover over WP staging and then go to settings, I'm just going to quickly go through some of the settings here. Most people probably won't need to change anything here, but if you do find that you're getting some kind of issues, it may be that your server is not very powerful, so you may need to lessen some of these numbers. I'm not going to read through everything here because there is some information already there, but just to note that if you are having issues, you may need to lower some of these numbers. Now this here is the maximum file size. So at the moment the default is 8 megabytes, so any files that it finds that are more than 8 megabytes, it's going to skip it. Now I would suggest probably leaving that as 8 megabytes, but just something to note that if you do have, say, like videos that you host yourself, so not like YouTube videos or anything like that, if you actually upload it through the media center on WordPress, then it won't be copying them files over. So just really just something to keep in mind, that the big files won't be copied over. Most of the settings you're just going to leave as is. Now one thing to highlight here is the admin authorization. Now what this does is this creates a login page that covers the staging site. I'm going to show you that in a second. But what this does is it stops search engines from accessing the site, because obviously this is a duplicate of your main site and we don't want search engines indexing that. And also it just keeps out any other type of visitors that shouldn't be viewing it. Now for those of you that are using this to maybe show clients something, you can disable this so they can see it if they haven't got like the admin login or anything like that. Everything else is probably keep as a default, except this one here, remove data. So if you do uninstall WP staging, you want to check this just to make sure that it removes everything. And that's really it. It is quite a simple plugin, but really powerful. So now let's actually create our staging site. So if we click on Sites Start underneath WP Staging, and then we want to click Create New Staging Site. Now this is the name for your staging site. Now I would recommend not using any spaces, although I did test this and it does put a hyphen instead of a space, so just to avoid that I'd probably just not put any spaces at all. So I'm going to call this WOMS for Watch Over My Site, and then copy. And this is actually the folder that it's going to create on your hosting account as well, which I'll also show you once it's done. Now you probably won't need to change anything here, but let's just have a quick look through it. So we've got DB tables. This is all the tables in your WordPress database. You do probably want to copy all of these, so I just leave these all ticked. And the same with files, you just want to have the WP folders ticked. If you do kind of have a bit more knowledge and you know different directories that you want to copy, you can put the paths in there, but there's probably not going to be any need for that. Then we need to click on Start Cloning. So now this is going to show us a log of everything that's been done. I'm going to pause the video again because this normally takes around 3-4 minutes, so I'll see you when this is done. Okay, so now the staging process is completed. As you can see here, the time it took was 4 minutes and 31 seconds. This is going to be different depending on how big your website is, like all, you know, how much information, how many plugins and all that kind of stuff you've got installed, so it will vary. Now if we scroll down here, you'll see the developers put in a couple of important notes. What happens when you create a staging site is it disables permalinks. Now I'll show you what that means in a second, but if you just read through this just to make sure you kind of understand. And below that you'll see a log of everything that's happened, so just make sure there's no warnings or errors or anything in there. And to actually access the staging version, you'll see here it's created this subfolder, what I called it WOMS copy, and that's a subdirectory or subfolder of the main website. And if we click on Open Staging Site, this will take us to the login page that I mentioned. So if anyone comes directly to the page, they'll see this login. Now this login is exactly the same details as the admin login that you use to access WordPress normally. So I'm going to click on login, and now it's taken me to the home page of the website. But as you can see here, which is a really nice feature, we now have this orange bar instead of the the black bar that you normally have. This just identifies that you're working on the staging site. So if you're like me, if you click between different tabs, you'll be able to quickly identify that this is a staging site. So if we hover over staging and click on dashboard, we'll go to the WordPress dashboard for the staging site, and it's exactly the same as our other site. We can see here 7 updates. Now I have a SSL plugin, really simple SSL, and this is just telling me that the 301 redirect, basically the redirect to the HTTPS setting is not working. For those of you that know what a .htaccess file is, that isn't copied over to the staging version. So if you have any rules set up in there, then that's not going to be copied over. So that could potentially cause some issues. And for those of you that don't understand what a htaccess folder is, htaccess file is, one of the things that it will affect on your site is, if I look at one of the posts on the website, if I click on the link for it, you'll see the structure that it uses is the default WordPress one. So instead of, like most people will probably have like the post name setting in permalinks. So if I just go into that just to show you what I mean, if we go to settings and permalinks, you'll see the one that's selected is plain, which is basically like the default structure. Now most people will probably have post name selected, or maybe date, month and name, or one of these ones here. Now this isn't an issue, so don't worry about it. If you really wanted to, you could actually try to enable it back to the way it was, but if there are any issues, then obviously you can post on the forum. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the updating process. So like I said, the whole point of creating this staging site is just so we can perform WordPress updates safely, just to see what kind of effect they have. If we go to the updates page, we can see that WordPress needs updating to 5.0.1, and I would highly recommend that you do this as soon as you can, because there was quite a few security issues that were highlighted in previous versions, so you really need to get onto 5.0.1 as quickly as possible. And by doing the staging process, this is a safer way just to test if it has any effects on your site. And also we can see here we've got 4 plugins that need updating and also 2 themes. So I've used quite popular plugins and themes just for this video. Now what I would suggest you do is, when you're doing updates, do plugins first, then do themes, and then do the core WordPress update. And also, as you can see here, with plugins you can actually update them all at once. Now if you don't really know what you're doing, I would recommend you do them one at a time. That way, if there are any issues, then it will be easy for you to identify what's caused that issue if you do them one at a time. Just to kind of show you, what we'll do is we'll update Elementor, tick the box, and then click update plugins. Okay, so that's now updated. So now what you want to do is just check after each update whether there's any issues. So if we just click a few links, just make sure to see if we can see any kind of errors or anything like that. And everything looks fine. Now what you might want to do is you might want to do a full page refresh, just in case there's any kind of caching or anything on your site. If you hold down Control and F5, that does a full page refresh. Everything looks fine. So now I'm going to go through and update all these here. So I'll just pause the video while I do this. Okay, so now I've updated everything here, and we're now on the WordPress 5.0.1. And if we go over to the site, the staging version of the site, and I just refresh the page and just click around just to make sure Everything seems to be fine. I've got no errors appearing anywhere, no white screen of death or anything like that. Everything seems to be fine. Now I'm not going to go through the new editor. There is information available, but what I will do is I will just go in and just to kind of show you what happens when you go up to version 5. If we click on edit, any posts or pages that you've created using the what's now called the classic editor will now be in these classic blocks. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go through teaching you how to use Gutenberg. That's probably something that I might use further down the line, but just kind of to let you know that it should be fine, as long as the only real issues I've seen is like maybe like if you're using an old theme or something like that. But if you do use plugins that are well maintained, which you really should be doing, and themes, etc., they should all be, or in the near future, compatible with the new version. So like I said, I'm not going to go any deeper into Gutenberg, or the new post editor as it's called. So once everything's okay, this now means you can perform the updates on your live site. So just make sure you're on your live site. Okay, so I've now updated everything on the live site. As we can see, we've got no more updates available. Everything's been updated. And if we go over to look at the site, everything's fine. No errors anywhere. All the links seem to be working fine. So we've successfully updated everything. Now, you have a decision to make once you've done all your updates. Now, if you decide to keep the staging site, what you can do is when you add like new content, new posts, new pages or whatever, you can actually update the staged version. Let's say you added a new post or some kind of content to your site. So I'm just going to do a quick post here. I'll give it a title. This is a new post. And then what we'll do is we'll add an image. So I'm just going to use this one here. And then I'm going to add some text. And then we'll publish this post. So if we go to the site, we'll see here, this is the post that I've just added. But if we go to our staging site, this is the staging site, the content's not there. So what you can do is you can click update, and basically what this is going to do is this is going to pass all the information back over to the staging site. So like I said, this is just for people that want to keep the staging site. So if we click, actually if we just see here, these are the new tables that WP Staging has created that duplicate these here, but they have a different prefix. Now we want to make sure that all the WP tables are selected, which they will be by default, and all these staging ones aren't, because obviously we don't want to copy these over. And everything else is the same, so that's just the same as before. And then if we click update clone, it'll give us a warning message, and then we click OK. So again, it's just going to run through the cloning process, so I'm just going to pause it again while it runs through. Okay, so the update's now finished. It's worth noting that you don't get the link to the staging site after the update, so what you're looking for here is where it says finished, the job finished. And then if we click sites start again, we'll see our staged version. There we go. So this time if we click on open and log in, we've now got this new post, so it now matches the live version. So like I said, this is just for people that want to keep the staging copy, and you can push from your live site to the staging version. My recommendation would be to, once you've gone through the updating process or the testing or whatever you wanted to do, I would recommend actually deleting it, and then just creating a new one further down the line if you wanted to do further updates or testing or anything like that. So it's quite straightforward. You'll click delete, and this will delete the staging copy. And we've got a warning message here just telling us that it is going to delete some of the tables. Now if we go in here, this is going to tell us what table is going to be removed. So the ones that should be ticked are anything to do with this WP STG, which is WP staging. So that's all fine, and the only folder that it should be removing is the copy one that we did, which is correct. Now if I click remove, and that's deleted our staging site. So now if I refresh this, it's no longer there. This is giving me a 404 to say that it doesn't exist, which is right. And then we just go back to our home page, everything's fine and working. So that's everything I wanted to go through in the video. I'm sorry it was a bit long, but I did want to try and be as thorough as possible. If you've got any questions or comments, you can leave them in the video below, or if you're watching it on Facebook or anything like that, then any questions just post below. Or anything you're not sure about, I'll be happy to answer any questions of stuff that I've covered in the video. And like I said, the developer of the plugin is very responsive, so you can go to the support forum on WordPress.org. So if we go there, type in WordPress.org and then click plugins, and then staging again, and this is the one. This is the actual page on WordPress.org for the plugin, but if you click on support, then you can see some of the questions that have been asked here, or you can post your own. You will need a WordPress account for that. But like I said, he is Rene, which hopefully I'm saying his name right, is really responsive, and that's what we want for developers. I hope you found this useful. Like I said, there will be a link in the pinned comment below if you want to get emails when I add new videos, and also when the mini course is available for maintaining WordPress, you'll also get a link for that if you're on the list. Click the like button if you found this useful. See you in the next video.